This is Extra Points, a Pop Warner podcast. I'm your host, Tim Glaze. We're sharing some of the most compelling stories in sports. On this episode, we chat with one of the most versatile defensive backs the game has seen. He was with the Eagles and the Broncos and now in the Hall of Fame. Here's Brian Dawkins. I just wanted to start off with just letting you let us know, what are you up to these days?
Oh, man. So what I'm doing now, a lot of my time is with my foundation, Brian Dawkins Impact Foundation. And the genesis of it is to help single parents and the child in the household with transformational moments, right? Blessing both of them to be able to do things that they probably wouldn't be able to do without the funding. And also in high school, we give away some programs that help I call it cerebral wellness. I don't call it mental health anymore. It's too much negative connotations attached to it. And so I call it cerebral wellness. So we have programs that bless the young people in high school at the different levels, right? We try to start off hitting them early around the 8th grade and then continue on into high school. And in high school, we have a Young Ambassadors program that we're doing in Philadelphia right now as a pilot program to empower. Right now we have 20 young ambassadors at George Washington High School. And so we're empowering them to be able to think, to have more confidence in their communication skills and the power of their stories, and then to be able to reach back to help those who are younger than them to come up a little bit. So those are some of the things. There's a whole bunch more that we have going on, but those are some of the things that we're doing, that I've been doing. And also I'm an inspirational speaker as well. And so go around companies and different places to talk to them, not just companies, but also churches and the like. So, being blessed to be able to share the good news.
Yeah, your story is very interesting. And what's interesting about what you're doing today is, I go back and a little bit of your history right out of high school. One thing I like about you is you didn't always get what you wanted. Like, you didn't get into Florida because of your grades. And then that high school Brian Dawkins, from that person to who you are today, having to give back to those kids of the same age. How did that transformation happen in your life? Like, what happened? How did you get from there to where you're at here mentally and just from your perspective?
Wow. Well, it's kind of the processing that we're helping the young ambassadors go through, right? I was looking back at your story. And the reason why I can communicate my story back the way that I am now is because once I retired from football, I looked back, it was over my career, in order to do my Hall of Fame speech and write the book, right? And what I began to see some of the things, the maturity in some of the things that I began to do differently. The things that was once, I thought it was a detriment to me. My communication, I stuttered in the book. You remember that I stuttered quite a bit when I was younger. And then I was an angry young man. So sometimes I would do things that I would have to say I'm sorry for a whole lot. But now, here I am, fast forward all the way to today. Communication skills is one of the things that I do. Once again, I just told you I'm an inspirational speaker. And then the ultimate, though, is my faith. I'll just let you know, it is my faith in Jesus Christ. That was the beginning of it all, to be honest with you. And again, as I look back over that, I recognize that there's certain things that happened my 11th grade year after my 11th grade year when I accepted Christ into my life, that I began to see the stepstones of how he was moving in my life.
The going back to your childhood as well, it's like you played Pop Warner out of Jacksonville. Yes. So your Pop Warner experience, how did that shape, or what was your Pop Warner experience? I'll let you explain that.
So I was not a football fan. I played football in the neighborhood, right? I was a basketball fan. I wanted to play basketball. That was my thing. Basketball was my thing. And so when I then had an opportunity to then play, and the only reason I took that opportunity is because basically a lot of kids in the neighborhood were playing, and I wouldn't have nobody to play with, to be honest with you. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go out there and play too. So that was right around 10 or 11 years old when I first time went out to do organized. And the first year that I had a chance to play, there was 2 coaches at the park that I had a chance to play for. One was more seasoned. He was, more tenured there. I would say it like that. And then there was another one who was the first year coach. So I decided to play for the first year coach, right? And so I went out and played quarterback at first. And then I recognized that my offensive line wasn't the best in the world. So I asked him, could I move the running back? Because at least I can make people miss before I get hit. And so had a successful season leading and rushing and touchdowns and all that stuff. And then the next year, the coach that I decided not to play for, I had to play for him. And he moved me to center. So I just told you, I went from running back, leading the other squad, to center. And I wasn't a big kid. Like, I wasn't big. So I'm like, why is this dude moving me to center? So, I'm thinking, I told my dad about it. I told my dad, and first of all, let me retract. So before I even started Pop Warner, my dad said a couple of things to me. He said, you sure you want to play? I said, yes. He said, you absolutely sure? I said, yes. He said, because if you start, you're not stopping. You're going to finish it. And you're going to be coachable the whole time, right? So that was kind of my directive of how I was going to have to approach it. So the first year wasn't a big deal, right? Coachable, yeah, I'm starting. But when he moved me to center, that was tough. That was tough because I hated it. I told my dad to go talk to the coach. See, can we move? Can I do something else? And then my coach told him, that I was pretty good at it. And so my dad, I'm thinking my dad ain't gonna handle that. My pops don't handle that. No, he came back to me and said, well, he said, you're good at it, so you're gonna stay right there. So I was like, you guys to be kidding. But here's what that did in my life. First of all, what I just told you, the directive my dad gave me is one of the principles that I walk with to this day. That once you start something, you give your word, you start, you finish it, and you stay coachable the whole time, right? So, but the other thing that I did is I was working so hard to show the coaches that I needed to be doing something else, that I developed in me the ability to then grind past or give more than is expected, is how I can communicate it now. So I'm trying to show them after practice when we're running laps, I'm like lapping people to show them I'm supposed to be doing something else, right? I can actually run. You know what I mean? So I did that for that whole year. And so the next year came, and I'm thinking, okay, at least I've shown them that I can do some things. I'm the first in line. I'm trying to, beat everybody in laps. Even in every drill, I'm trying to be the first or second guy, in competitions. So the next year, I'm thinking I'm going to, go to another position. Nope, it put me back at center. So again, I have to humble myself. But here's what that also did. Now I see my offensive line teammates through a different lens. I saw that you don't get a lot of props when you're playing offensive line. You don't get a lot of love. The only time you really get talked about is when you mess up for the most part, right? So I had a deeper appreciation for my offensive line. But here's the other thing that it did. There's a reason why I love contact so much. And one of them is because I played offensive line. And they had me pulling, like I would snap the ball and pull on sweeps and stuff like that. And Little League, right? Because I can run. I wasn't the big, but also it taught me about leverage, of how to, use my leverage, my low hat, to be able to maneuver and get people out of there. But the other thing that it did, it kind of helped me channel my anger. It reminds me of Adam Chandler's Waterboy, right? He's looking across the line of scrimmage and people talking about his mama, right? You talking about my mama, and it gets him fired up to go. Like, that's how I felt when I went against people who were crossing me. I kind of envisioned Coach Grave. That was the coach who moved me to center. I was kind of envisioning Coach Grave and using that anger to move that cat out of that space. But I'll stop there so you can ask some questions.
No. It's really, this is, I think, is where a lesson is for these kids these days. Because, growing up, I mean, everybody wants to be the skill player, the popular guys, the Patrick Mahomes and people that get all the attention. And for a kid to go through and not be able to get that position or that role that he wants at 10, 11, 12 years old. I mean, what would you tell the kid in the moment who may have still been as frustrated, who may be as frustrated as you were? Like, how would you encourage a kid that's not playing where he wants to play? Yeah.
Give your max effort. Go above and beyond. Do more than is expected of you, whatever space you're in. Because here's what I did. I developed in me a true worker. I brought things out of me that I didn't know what was in there because I was working so hard to show them that I'm supposed to be doing other stuff, right? So I began to develop in me that ability to fight, to grind, to persevere through stuff. Even at that young age of 11, 12 years old, these are principles that begin to bud in my life. Some of the seeds that have been planted in me from my father are begin to bloom and blossom as I begin to work hard. So I'm telling you, work where you are. Work as hard as you can where you are, wherever they have you at. You be the best, absolute best. Matter of fact, what I would say is recognize that in doing what you don't want to do for a season, you're developing something in you that could potentially bless you in seasons that you can't quite see yet. I couldn't quite see NFL. I couldn't quite see, some of the things that I would be doing in high school. But because of my love for the contact, my ability to now understand leverage, and my ability to want to outwork everybody around me, those things help me tremendously on my journey.
Yeah. And you mentioned leverage. I know in your book, which is called Blessed by the Best, for those who are listening, it's a great book. You mentioned there was a line in there, you said, leverage is king. And you actually had to be able to use some of those lessons to even get into the role you had at Clemson. So just apply it to that. Like, how do you draw something from your past into what you're currently doing now? So that was a pivotal moment for you as well to get on the starting field for Clemson as well.
Yeah, absolutely. To get into Clemson, period. So you're talking about specifically, you talk about me becoming a starter or me just getting into Clemson? Which part are you talking about?
No, part about like how you're using that past lesson that you didn't value at the time to help you become a starter at Clemson.
Yeah. So when I got to Clemson, I was a 5'10", 100 and probably 65-pound strong safety they moved me to. And when I got there, they had an all ACC strong safety and punt returner, kick returner, and Darnell Stevens, right? So I'm like, how am I gonna beat this dude out? He's 6 foot. I think he was like 6 foot, and Darnell was like 210, 220. I'm like, man, come on. But me, I'm a fight. Why? Because I know how to grind. I know how to work. I'm going to outwork everybody around me. So maybe I can't beat him out, but I'm going to doggone show try. And what happened was that the way that I approached practice, the way that I approached, remember again, that brought out of me, that Pop Warner and my pops brought out of me something that I began to utilize at Clemson, right? And then some other things with Coach Humphrey, too. We haven't gotten into Coach Humphrey. So what Coach Humphrey taught me is if he can't break me, nobody can. Mentally, you can't break me because he couldn't break me in high school basketball. So those formulas I did for my freshman year. And what happened was, like the last couple of games when I truly got a chance to play a little bit, Darnell got hurt. I played well as a freshman, played very, very well. And so what they did is to get me on the field, they moved Darnell to my sophomore year to linebacker to get me on the field. Right? Now, what if I went in there and just dogged it out? What if I went in there pout and I didn't give hard effort and try to maximize every opportunity that I had? What if I didn't do that? Right? You think they would have moved him to linebacker, knowing he was all ACC? You think they would have moved him? No, they'd have left him right there. But again, because of my desire to, again, do things differently, even though I wanted to be a starter right away, but I knew that I had to grind. I knew I had to work.
Yeah, you mentioned, when I asked the question, you asked if about getting into Clemson. That's a story as well. And one of the things I draw back on that, and something you mentioned as well, is you are the people you hang around. And you definitely had somebody really step up big for you to get to Clemson. And that had to feel good about having a teammate that brought you into Clemson as well, and then give you a shot there in your spot too. So what was that experience like?
Oh, man, that experience. First of all, I didn't know it until after retirement. So I didn't find this information out that I didn't get into Clemson because of me necessarily until after retirement when I was, planning my writing the book, kind of talking to Patrick Sapp a little bit. And then he mentioned real briefly, him speaking to the coaches to help me get into Clemson. I was like, what? You did what? I said, yeah, I talked to Coach Hatfield. I talked to Rick Stockstill at the time. I said, are you serious? He said, yeah, you didn't know that? I said, no, I didn't know that, man. I thought they wanted me, man. But it made sense, though. It made sense. Because when I got there, like it was a tough environment when I got there. Again, I wasn't the biggest of safeties. And they brought in 2 other safeties the same year. So I was the last scholarship given that year to Clemson. And there are other 2 safeties that were with me in my class, Andre Carter and Leomont Evans. Leo was 6'1", I believe, like 215. Andre was probably, I think he was like right around 6'1" as well, but he was like maybe like 220. So they like big dudes playing strong safety, right? So I recognize it now that I wasn't treated, I'll just say I wasn't treated like the other 2 in the beginning, right? There was a little more love being given. But again, my mindset has been shaped by my upbringing. So it doesn't matter if you give me like a warm welcome or if it's going to be a hard journey. I'm going to do what I need to do. But the point is that I didn't get in Clemson because of me. I got into Clemson because of Patrick. He said that if I go to Clemson, Doc got to come with me. So that, again, that's the importance of surrounding yourself with the right people.
Yeah, the other thing you mentioned earlier, and it kind of connects to this, is, one thing that I'm sure helped you succeed at all levels is going back to, you mentioned Coach Humphrey, getting into that, and particularly the values he instilled in you on conditioning. So the conditioning part of it, and as we're recording this in June, this is time that Pop Warner kids of any age need to be conditioned. So how did conditioning, and particularly Coach Humphrey's role in your life, kind of influence it and give you a head start on your career?
And Coach Humphrey. Now, listen to me. At the time, I wasn't loving him. At the time, we did not love Coach Humphrey. Right? Some of us didn't even like him sometimes, the way that he did some things. But I will tell you again, because of the principle, and I keep saying this because it's important. Because of the principles that I was taught by my father, and I trusted his advice, or I trusted his way of seeing things. I took that with me to Coach Humphrey. Coach Humphrey was basically a student of Bobby Knight. We found that out. He read Bobby Knight's book like it was the Bible, right? So he was a Bobby Knight type of. So what he would do is, we would run like sometimes 70 laps, 50 laps, not 25, not 10. 50, 75. We would run the stadiums. We would run sometimes more than the track team. I'm just being honest with you. But again, I have to do what? I have to give max effort. I have to be first. So I'm the pace setter and all of that. And so we ran so much. We would run so much, man, that like I looked up to see how to protect my chest, man, because I was like, basically I was chafing because my jersey was rubbing up against my chest so much. So I had to put like bandages all over my chest because my jersey was chafing my chest. But what he did though is he was like a negative reinforcement type of coach. Like in today's Pop Warner, today's society, to be honest with you, he wouldn't be valued a whole lot, to be honest with you. Because if he didn't say anything to you, that means you're doing good. Think about that. It's completely different of today, right? It's of how we're supposed to do things. I know you're supposed to do things differently, so I do things differently when I was a coach. Like I'm going to get on you, but I'm also going to praise you for the things you do right? There was no praise, Jack. It was only if he saw whatever he's going to find whatever he could to get on you, to make you run, to make us run. And so again, from that vantage point of me running all that I ran with him, and at no point did I pass out. At no point did I stop. Matter of fact, I was the dude, once again, I'm the dude that's leading in laps, lapping everybody. I'm the pace setter. So let's say I would run, let's say he gave us 75 laps. I would run probably 55 of those laps. I didn't run all of them. I'm not going to lie. I didn't run all of them. I would run 55. And so then guys would then begin to stop after me, right? And so that's the mindset that I developed with him. But it was one offseason, the year we won the state, I saw something in the conditioning that we did, that we played, the teams that we played, because we played a pressing defense. It was more like Arkansas's defense, the way that we played. Physical brand of ball, trapping, running, and all of those things. And I literally saw teams that were ranked higher than us. I saw the basically guys clock out. They tapped out. Mentally, physically, they just tapped out while we were still fresh. So I recognized the benefits of being in condition, right? So from that vantage point, I took that with me to Clemson and to the NFL. There's nothing that you can do to break me. Nothing. I'm gonna give max. I'm gonna go hard. My body will break down before my mind does. So that's something that, again, has allowed me to then do the things that I did in the NFL as well.
Yeah. So you talk about conditioning, you talk about your mentality, but one of the other things I thought sets you apart, and you see this not in things you talked about, but also in the length of your career, your statistics, is you were known for being able to anticipate things and see things before they happen, like you call it read the plays, see what's going on. But that has to go back to you being a student of the game. So how does that connect? How do you prepare yourselves to be able to play in that regard and to anticipate different things before they happen? And what would be the lesson for kids as they're navigating their own career up from Pop Warner into the pros?
Yeah, Pop Warner wise, you have to be someone that's willing to ask questions, to say you don't know. You have to be willing to say, I don't know something, in order to ask the right questions so that someone can help you begin to do the things that you need to do to be that person to then be able to anticipate things. The only reason I can anticipate is because of being able to then watch a little film or having input about the next team, what the next team does. So when a situation presents itself, I can then guesstimate that they're going to do this thing and I can go jump that route, right? And so, again, that's a coach thing. Usually you will have coaches that at least one of your coaches has that type of ability to be that type of communication tool for you that you can go ask about the opponent you're about to play and specific things that coach believes that you should know about this particular team. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, yes. Yeah, and it's interesting you brought it up and mentioned it like that, because now in this conversation, you've talked about two kind of types of coaches. One that may have put you in a position that you didn't feel you were best for. And I know at one point in your career, when you came up through the Eagles, you eventually had a changing coach to Jim Johnson, and he may have exploited some of your strengths in terms of found things that you would be really good at. And I think that was probably the start of your Weapon X vibe and just like that mentality or that personality that you took on. So what, how was that change to finding a coach that really exploited your strengths? And, how did that end up changing your career?
I will tell you, though, I've had coaches along the way that have recognized things in me that I couldn't see in myself, right? When I was in Reigns, Coach Stevens saw some things in me that I couldn't see. Coach Black, my defensive back coach, matter of fact, it was because of Coach Black, if you're reading the book, that I was able to then graduate at Clemson in 3.5 years because of his tutelage, him tutoring me, after I basically got my top scholarship taken away because of my grades when Florida came, right? So there's been other individuals along the way that the Lord has blessed and put in my path. But I'll tell you that before Jim Johnson, there was Coach Emmett Thomas, like Coach E. Listen, he blessed me with this. He would not let me settle for good because he saw greatness in me. I didn't see greatness. I was trying to make the doggone team, man. I'm just being honest with you. I'm trying to just, see if I can bless my family. I didn't know what I couldn't do. I didn't know what I could do yet. But what he saw in me, I began to believe and trust in the vision that he had for me. And once I recognized what he saw in me, I then recognized what I could do. So then I no longer needed his vision. I knew what I can do potentially. Like I knew the vastness of the abilities that the Lord had given me that I can go out and do. And so when Jim came along, that's who he got. He got that beast that had been awakened, that humble beast that had been awakened. And he was ready to then be used how Jim used me. And Jim used me all over the field. That's why Weapon X. Weapon X, if you don't know who that is, Wolverine. And he can do all he can do. He was very good at what he does. He did, as he says, but what he does ain't nice, right? The way he says it. So it was the same thing for me and with me, that he could use me all over the field in ways that at that time players weren't being used, safeties weren't being used.
Hey all, so just when you thought your fall season could be over, you can get the team together for an exciting new flag football tournament. For the first time, Pop Warner is partnering with NFL Flag to host a national flag football event. The Crown Classic will take place in Charlotte, North Carolina this December 12th and 13th, with divisions across many age groups, both co-ed and girls. Registration opens September 2nd. For more information, check out popwarner.com. Now back to the episode.
You mentioned a lot of different coaches that have helped you, and it leads me to wonder, like, I've read in your book when Clinton Hart came up and you really started taking, I would say, him under your wing a little bit. Might be the first time you took a teammate under the wing in that regard. And you talk about your experience with the Broncos and doing something very similar later in your career. But have you ever thought about becoming a coach as yourself?
So it's in me. I did. I coached high school, my son, up at Valor Christian in Colorado for his junior and senior year. And I enjoyed it. So I know that's in me to do. But what I did not want to do is I did not want to make my wife a single mom again. Because basically, when I was playing, like, she was a single mom a lot of the time because I was going all the time, working and working out. Sometimes working out to get replenished IVs and treatments because of the dumb stuff that I did on the field, right, to get my body back ready to go play, but also training, right? So I was very dedicated into becoming the best that I can absolutely be at the position that I was in. And so what I did not want to do is get in retirement, because I know me. Like, I know me, that if I begin to coach, that I'm going to be trying to pour into those young men, man. They're going to become like my sons. Like, so I'll be, basically spend a whole lot more time away from the house than I would be right now.
Yeah. So it's interesting. You had a long career with Philadelphia. I mean, most people, at least I'm in Philadelphia market. Pop Warner's based here in Philadelphia. We definitely remember you as an Eagle. You spent some time with the Denver Broncos. What are, like, over the course of your career, what are some of your favorite experiences in the teams that you may have played for? Like your annual teams, like the season team.
You talk about with my best times in Philly?
Yeah, we'll go with that. Best times in Philly.
Oh, wow. My best times in Philly. Wow. Well, my best moment in Philadelphia is when we beat Atlanta to go to the Super Bowl, right? For those who don't know, that we had made at that time 3 consecutive NFC championship games that we couldn't get across that hump. And to finally get over that hump to get to the Super Bowl was a tremendous, tremendous thing. I still remember that. I will forever remember that. The tears and crying of Jim Johnson, the late, great Jim Johnson, tears in Andy's eyes, as we hoist up that of the trophy. So that's something that I'll always remember. The other thing that I will say that is when I finally took that step after Irving Fryer had left, and when Troy Vincent left, like, there was a vacancy of leadership. Now, I had been leading, but because we had 2 vocal guys, and I'm an introvert, to be honest with you, I was letting them do, y'all got it. Yeah, if y'all got it, my major questions, y'all go talk to Troy and Irv, right? But then when they left, I had to step into that space. I didn't have to, but I felt led to step into that space. And so I will tell you that the privilege of leading was something that I will forever remember. The privilege of leading. And when I say the privilege of leading, there's a lot of pressure that comes with leading, especially in Philadelphia, of how you're supposed to carry yourself, how you're supposed to handle yourself. So I wanted to handle myself in such a way as my teammates and coaches can count on me to always be ready on game day, because I won't do stupid stuff off the field. So my character and integrity is going to be on point. So what you see in front of you is the same me that's when you don't see me, right? So I wanted to have that type of ability. And then for me, I look at success in my eyes, even to this day, through my 16-year-old eyes. So my 16-year-old self did not think a whole lot of himself. He was angry all the time. He felt disrespected a whole lot. So he didn't know what he didn't know what he could do. And so when I looked through his eyes when I was in Philadelphia, and I saw myself as being the face of the Eagles at one point, an NFL franchise in Philadelphia, and you got my Brian Dawkins' name as people think about my name when they see the Eagle logo, man, that's tremendously humbling for me. So I'll always remember that. That'll always be something that I'll carry with me.
Yeah, being a leader in the Philadelphia Eagles, having lived in the city, I know your leadership just wasn't in the locker room. It was in the entire city, all the fans and Philly fans. I mean, I'm biased, but we're some of the best. So what's your relationship with Philly fans? I mean, how was it like playing in Philadelphia in this environment in the city?
Well, so my Pop Warner upbringing, I would tell you that like it was a tough dynamic in Pop Warner in Jacksonville, Florida, right? Forest View, where I come from, matter of fact, I believe they're still winning. Well, they're winning more championships now than when I was there. But like it's a demanding, like they're demanding of you at 12 and 13 years old. It's not just coming out there and having a good time. It's about grinding and working. And so they don't, and here's the thing, they don't always communicate with you with nice language. Can I just say that, right? So in some aspects, like I was used to some of those things. So like you can't, again, you're not gonna break me physically, and like you're not gonna break me mentally, because I've heard people say stuff to me, but I've developed the mindset to be able to absorb what is useful and discard what is useless, right? The attitude and the words of curse words, the curse words that may come, right? I learned to ignore those things, but I want to get to the heart of what you're saying so that I can get better at the thing that you're trying to help me get better at. Does that make sense? So having a filter, being blessed to have to develop a filter. It wasn't something that happened right away, but to begin to develop a filter. So when I got to Philadelphia, come on, man. Like, yeah. So so if I do get booed, that you won't be booing me again. Why? Because I'm not going to make that same dumb mistake again. I'm going to fix it. Matter of fact, I tell people like this. One of the reasons that playing in Philadelphia wasn't as tumultuous for me than for other people is because I had a high standard for my play. So you may dislike or be upset about that one play or those two plays, but I'm ticked off at myself for about 5 things that I didn't do right. So my standard of who I wanted to be and who I thought I could be was extremely high. So there's even the media where their standards weren't as high as my standards were for myself. So again, that allowed me to then be in a space to be able to have those individuals that are angry. And the other thing that I would say is I recognize what love is, but I also recognize what tough love is. Like, so there's sometimes some tough love that comes from the fans, right? Right. And you have to look at it that way. If you look at it as they're just attacking you, and again, they're going to use some words that you're not going to like from time to time. But again, for me, to be able to have that filter and to, again, recognize that I have a standard for my play that your view of the game just can't, you don't understand.
The Philadelphia fans, I know when you were enshrined, we'll talk about your Hall of Fame enshrinement here, but I know that one of the things that I feel may have humbled you the most was just how much green showed up at your ceremony. So to see the fans come out on your special day was just kind of validation of all those years in Philadelphia.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons, like even to the day, I'm still apologizing because I have to continue to apologize. And I forgot to mention the Broncos fans, right? Played for them for 3 years. I enjoyed my time there. But when I saw that green wave, I saw all them green jerseys, and throughout the week, I'm seeing all of this green. Matter of fact, that was it was overwhelming it was overwhelmingly green that whole week, even though neither one of the Eagles didn't play in the Hall of Fame game that week. I think it was the Chicago and Baltimore, right? But it was basically Eagles home game the way that you look if you look out into the stands. And so when I saw that, like the emotions, my heart began to palpitate and began to get hyped. And I just had to thank those fans for coming out the way that I did.
And, that gives a pretty good perspective how you start your journey as a Hall of Famer. But, since you become a Hall of Famer, how has that changed, or what opportunities has the Hall of Fame given you?
Yeah, so I mean, I get a chance to speak at events from that perspective, right? Because you got to think that the Hall of Fame, I believe there's about 400 something members now, something like that, probably to that level, probably not quite. So out of the thousands of individuals that have played the game of football, my number will forever be 313. That's my number, 313. Forever, right? And so out of all of the people that have played the game, here I am, my name will forever be in that space. And so to be able to accomplish that took a whole lot. So I'm able to now share the mindset from a physical standpoint, yes, a mental standpoint, but also a spiritual standpoint of what allowed me to achieve that level of success in my life, right? So I get a chance to now speak about that. So being able to team up with different brands and different companies, and even different communities, different churches, again, about how you can recognize something great in yourself, but it's a certain amount of dedication that you have to pour into it. Faith, you have to pour into it, absolutely, but a dedication, you have to pour into it. And, the way that I always say it is you have to fall in love. You have to fall in love with the pain of the grind.
So you recently, after you retired, you came back and you worked for the Eagles for a while, and you had one interesting perspective on what makes a good team. Before I get into that, can you explain to me what your perspective is on what would make a good football team?
Yeah, what would make a good? So one of the first things, besides toughness, because you're going to hear this about basically every team. Got to be smart, tough, right? Those are some things you're going to hear. Person of high character, those type of things. But I will tell you that the thing that I think, one of the things that you have to have in the building is accountability. If you don't have accountability, you have absolutely nothing. If you don't have accountability in your building, with yourself, self-accountability first. Again, I was self-accountable to myself, but I also had others' accountability. Others people looking at me and being able to pour into me to show me when I'm not doing something that I could be doing. And I'm then open and welcoming that critique in order for me to get better. But again, if you don't have that in the building and everybody's free to just do what they want to do, then you're not rowing in the same direction. You got a whole bunch of people rowing in different directions, and you're going nowhere consistently. I'm not saying you can't have a successful year or two, but you won't go anywhere consistently.
What these days, now that you're out of the game, you're obviously representing the game as a Hall of Famer, and you've done some work on media. What kind of perspective do you have on the game as a whole now that you'll be able to kind of look at it from a bird's eye view?
I mean, it's obviously I understand why they're doing some of the rules that they're doing. I do, as far as the physicality is concerned. For me, it's just sometimes frustrating the level that they go to not correct a wrong call. I'll just say it like that. Because sometimes there are calls that are absolutely wrong that you can see that are wrong, but they will not correct those calls. And sometimes those players actually get fined for something that it's because, as they said, we can't judge your intent, right? But again, if my intent is to go in, and you can see I've lowered my hat, I've lowered my head, tried to get it out of the way, and if the receiver then ducks into my path, how can I avoid that? There's nothing that I can do to avoid that. But again, they are then making everything and putting everything on one player to, at 100 miles per hour, be able to make that last second adjustment. When to me, we have now seen the advent of replay and how replay can quickly show you that now that was not what we thought. So then that flag is not the flag. That penalty is not the penalty. And let's move on with the game. And it happens like quickly now. It's not like it used to be taking forever to make those decisions. So for them not to have adapted that and put it into the level of competition is one of the things that frustrates me with the game.
Yeah, I know for Pop Warner, we're very aware of making the game safer and better. And part of that comes down to changing the way the game is coached or being able to influence the way the game is coached. Have you seen a lot, or do you anticipate a lot of coaching technique changes to kind of offset some of the issues that you just brought up?
Well, it should have been already happening, because these rules have been really more being enforced like towards the latter part of my career, right? So latter part of my career, cats were getting suspended for games and stuff like that, get fined. I was one of those cats that got fined big time for one of the hits. But the point is that this has been in play for forever now. So this already should be in high schools, Pop Warner. They should be teaching specific tackling drills to take the head out as much as possible. You can't take it out completely. It is what it is. The game of football, your anatomy, it won't allow you to do what sometimes I think that they think you can do. They think you can take your head off, put it to the side, and hold it in your right hand, and then hit people with your shoulder without with your head being in place. But your head is going to be involved at some point. But you still can teach as been talked about, the more rugby style tackles. You can teach that type of stuff.
It's interesting you mentioned that. It has been in play. What we've seen here is it's people like to coach the way they were taught like a generation ago. So it's a matter of us coaching the coaches. It's do you see a need for us more training for coaches in this regard, just as better coaching for players?
Yeah. Like if you want this game to truly become as safe as it can, like matter of fact, I will say it's as safe today as it ever has been, right? Because they're constantly trying to make those adjustments. So I give them credit on these things, but I would tell you that you do need to get these proper techniques taught, that you can still be a forceful tackler and still punish people. I hate to say it like that, but you still can have a punishing blow on someone and by adjusting how you do it. Matter of fact, the latter part of my career, I had to begin to adjust the way that I played the game. And that's what a professional does. A professional learns how to then adjust and maneuver his body in a way to still be able to be forceful, absolutely, but to do it a lot safer than we used to do it.
So I guess you have a positive view on the future of the sport, where it's heading?
I do.
You mentioned a lot of your coaches, and we're talking about coaching here, and you mentioned a lot of your coaches. Do you still stay in touch with a lot of your coaches?
Oh, well, some of them, not all of them. I said contact with a couple of them.
The one thing, we're going to wrap up here, and just before we do, I just wanted to mention again that your book is called Best by the Best. I've read it. I think it's phenomenal, and I really appreciate you sharing your story in that, and that's a good basis for this podcast interview. So really thank you for that. But I want to finish up with one question, one last question for you. Our kids, as you know, Pop Warner, we serve kids ages 5 to 15 around that area. And I thought about asking you what you would say to a team, but I think it might just kind of conversation we've had. I'm kind of curious what you would say to a coaching staff of a team that age. How would you go in and what advice would you have to the coaches?
Oh, for the coaches?
Yes.
So for the coaches, I would tell them that, listen, it's more than likely, especially in some of the homes, that when that person, that young person that you have in front of you, that little person, when they look back over their lives, you could be the greatest influence in that young person's life that they would have ever got if you handle yourself correctly. If you do things in the right way, that it could be that individual, that young person, that little dude, all of a sudden, when he goes through to high school, he goes through to college, and he goes through to the NFL, that he looks back and then says, you know what? I learned these things from Coach such and such, all the way back in Pop Warner and Little League.
So what would you say to a team, a kid?
Kid?
Yep.
Man. So it's basically the formula that I gave. So what you start, you finish. You give max effort, right? And you stay coachable the whole time. Wherever you find yourself, you grow in that place. Wherever you find yourself, you get better where you find yourself. Even if you don't like where you are, get better there, because you won't be in that place forever. And when you come out of that place and go to another place, you'll be better off in the next place because you went so hard in the place that you didn't want to be, right? And so I call that a pullback person. Never have coaches have to tell you to finish, to go harder, to run faster. Always have them telling you to slow down. We're just teaching right now. You don't have to go that hard. Always be that type of person and player, and watch how you begin to maneuver and move.
Perfect. Hey, thanks a lot. I really appreciate the conversation today. I've enjoyed talking to you, and just thanks for the time.
All right. God bless.
For Pop Warner, I'm your host, Tim Glaze. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. This podcast is a production of Pop Warner Little Scholars, the premier national governing body for youth football and cheer and dance. Visit us at popwarner.com.